Hi sis, so today you're going to be reading Robert's Rockets. This is an article which is also a biography. If you remember how an autobiography is all the important things that happen in a person's life, all the important events that happen in a person's life, except it's written by the person themselves. But a biography is very much the same, except it's written by someone else, okay? It's about a person's life's events, the most important things that happen in a person's life, except it's not written by the person themselves, it's written by someone else. So you're going to be reading about Robert and what rockets had to do with Roberts. So before we start reading this article, I want to remind you about some important things about biographies. Important things to remember about biographies is that biographies are kind of non-fiction writing. A biography tells facts about a person's life. A biography is also always written by someone else, not the person the biography is about, like I told you before. A biography might include some or all the information about when and where a person was born and where that person lived. Or it might include facts about the person's family. It will certainly include important things the person did. And it might also include when the person died, okay? So those are some key things to remember about biographies. So biography tells facts about a person's life. It's written by someone else, not the person themselves. Okay. You can think of biographies as bringing history to life, okay? Because it tells us important facts about people. When we find out why people from the past did things, it helps us better understand those people. Sometimes, when we read about famous people from the past, it helps us see that they were a lot like the way we are. Before we begin Robert's Rockets, let's practice identifying a biography, okay? From another biography. So I'm going to read a paragraph about a famous person. The famous person is Christopher Columbus. So the short paragraph goes like this from the article. Christopher Columbus was born in 1451 in Genoa, Italy. At that time, most people believed the earth was flat, but Columbus didn't agree. He thought that it was round. Because of his belief, Columbus said that he could get to Asia and the riches there more quickly by sailing west instead of by traveling east. In those days, people thought the only way to reach Asia was to travel overland toward the east. Columbus sailed west to try out his idea, and on the way he bumped into an unknown land. He was the first white European to arrive in America. When Columbus returned from his trip, people were amazed by his stories and wanted to see the new land for themselves. Columbus sailed to America many more times before he died in 1506. So what does this paragraph tell us? You can pause the video and try answering the question yourself. But here's the answer. It tells us facts about Christopher Columbus, the things that Christopher Columbus did. Another question for you. What do we call a non-fiction text that tells facts about someone's life? You should know this one. I've been talking about it for a couple of minutes now. Well, before I read the paragraph. We call a non-fiction text that tells facts about someone's life a biography, when it's written by someone other than that person that the biography is about. Okay, now there are some words to go over, but I'm not really going to go over those words because they will be I think they will be in bold letters. Let me see. Yeah, they are in bold letters. So these are your words to know: engine, fuel, gunpowder, oxygen, launched, and you know, get the article, and whenever you're not sure about a word, the meaning of a word, just look in the glossaries, okay? So the glossaries, let me actually take you to the glossaries. Hold on a second. Here's the glossary. The glossary is in alphabetical order. That means all of the words listed here are arranged in the order that alphabets go in your alphabet song. So if you remember your alphabet song, you should have no trouble finding any of the words that you're looking for. So one of those words were engine. We know that E comes after A, so it's gotta be, it can't be the first word, it can't be before A. Here's engine. Engine, a machine that uses energy from electricity or fuel such as gasoline to do work. Okay, that was just an example. You may not know what gunpowder means. Here's gunpowder, a black powder used in firing guns and making fireworks. It explodes when touched by fire. Okay. So yeah, those were just some of the words to know. You can, look up any of the words that you might not know in the glossary. Okay. Now we're back to Robert's rockets. So this article is a biography about a man named Robert H. Goddard, whose inventions made it possible for people to travel to outer space and to the moon. So, yeah, let's begin reading Robert's rockets. In 1882, Robert H. Goddard was born in Worcester, Massachusetts. He grew up in Worcester and in Boston. Okay, so these are two cities in this state of Massachusetts. And look, the date is given, the date that he was born in, the year that he was born in, and the place where he was born, which is Worcester, Massachusetts. And he grew up in Worcester and in Boston. So in 1899, another year is given over here. This article must be arranged in chronological order. Chronological order means the thing that happened first is talked about first, is discussed first. And then the thing that happened next is discussed next. Okay, we'll talk more about this later on. So, back to the article. In 1899, Robert was 17 years old. A teenager. One day, he climbed a cherry tree. Oh, could this be him? I don't know. Okay, he looked around. He was high up. Oh yeah, I think this is him. This is probably an illustration of him. Okay, he could see far away. He could see beautiful fields. Suddenly, Robert had an idea. What if there was a machine that could go into space? Yeah, so this is him sitting up there, looking into the fields and wondering, what if there was a machine, something like this, that could take people into space? What if it could go all the way to Mars? What if it could go all the way to Mars? Robert was sure he could make this dream come true. In college, Robert studied math and science. He wrote an article about exploring space. Wow. In 1907, another year mentioned here, he made a small rocket. I see the year 1907 here in the text. That's a clue to how the author organized the information in this article. I think the information is organized in the order that events happened. Because look, in the previous page, the year that he was born in is mentioned. And then the year that he turned 17 years old in was mentioned. So it's ordered in chronological order. And the years are important because some important event that goes along with these years is what this article is trying to highlight. Okay, that sounded confusing. What I'm trying to say is that these years are important dates to remember because something important happened during these years. So that's why they're mentioned, and they're important to remember, especially because you'll be doing an activity that calls for you to remember the years in which he did, these important things. Okay, back to the article. In 1907, he made a small rocket. He set it off in the basement of a building. Luckily, no one was hurt. Oh, by the way, when I'm reading this, I want you to follow along in your article. You should have, the physical copy of this book along with you. And when I'm reading, I want you to track each word with your fingers. And it's even better if you read it on your own at first, okay? So, try reading this on your own, but if you want me to read it out to you, as I'm doing in this video, I want you to at least track the words with your fingers, okay? Follow along as I'm reading in your physical copy of this article. So he set off the rocket, and so in 1907 he made a small rocket. He set it off in the basement of a building. Luckily, no one was hurt, but Robert had found the work he loved. Robert began to come up with ideas for building better rockets. He wrote reports about his ideas. He wrote that one day a rocket could fly to the moon. So I think this is an illustration of him in the basement of his building setting off a rocket. So this is, I think, the look on him when he came up with, an amazing idea to maybe one day, he could have a rocket that flew to the moon. Okay, let's see. People said Robert's ideas were impossible. One newspaper even wrote that he did not understand science. But Robert did many tests. He showed that his rockets worked. He kept finding ways to make them better and more powerful. So yeah, people said, it doesn't sound possible. I mean, he probably doesn't even understand science, because how can this be possible? Sending something to outer space, back in the day, it was kind of like beyond people's imagination. But that Robert didn't let those kinds of thoughts, discourage him. He kept trying. He did not give up. So he continued conducting many tests. He showed that his rockets worked, and he kept finding ways to make them better and more powerful. If previous ones didn't work, no problem. We'll keep trying. We'll make it better. Okay, so here's a picture of Robert. So it says that Robert built this device. Okay, so he's holding a device, and he built that device to help him figure out how well his rockets worked. Oh, okay. A rocket is a special kind of engine. To work, it must get very hot. It needs powerful fuel. Again, if you don't know any of these words, you know where to go. Go to the glossary, and you can read their definitions. Robert's first rockets used solid fuel, such as gunpowder. Oh, gunpowder is the stuff that is used in fireworks. Okay, then he had an idea. In 1926, another year, something important must have happened in this year. That's why it's mentioned. Okay, in 1926, Robert made a new kind of rocket. It did not use solid fuel. It used liquid fuel. The fuel was made of gasoline and very cold oxygen mixed together. So oxygen is a kind of gas that gas in the air that we need to breathe. But yeah, it's a kind of gas. So he made fuel out of oxygen and gasoline, and mix them together to power his rockets. Okay, there's a picture, there's an image over here, and here's a caption that tells what this image is about. So Robert launched his first liquid fuel rocket from his aunt's farm. Oh, so this must be him on his aunt's farm, and a photo of him after he launched his first rocket. Here's another picture, an illustration, towing a rocket to launch site. I think we have to read this first. Robert launched his new rocket. It shot into the air, but it did not go very far. It went up only 41 feet. Robert wanted to make rockets that could fly into space, so he still had a lot of work to do. This is Robert H. Goddard. Here's another image. It says one of Robert's rockets in a launching tower in Roswell, New Mexico. Okay, so that's another one of Robert's rockets. I think this was the kind of vehicle that was used to tow rockets to their launch site, because rockets were, large machines, and it needed a vehicle like this to be carried to their launch site somewhere like this. Okay. Robert built more new rockets. He did more tests. He launched 34 more rockets that used liquid fuel. Okay, because remember, before his rocket used solid fuel, which was gunpowder, but now he's using liquid fuel. Okay. Here's another image. It shows Robert made new and better rockets. Oh, okay, so this is probably a newer and better rocket that he built. Not all of Robert's rockets worked, but Robert did not give up. If a rocket did not work, he figured out why. Then he made changes. He invented ways to make the next one better. He came up with more than 200 inventions to improve his rockets. So, looks like he's, building rockets, seeing what worked in his rocket, what didn't work, learning from his mistakes, and then using that information to make even better rockets. Okay. Oh no, something happens here. Sadly, Robert became ill and died in 1945. Oh no. During his life, people had not paid much attention to his work. They did not understand how important it was. But soon, that changed. Here's a picture of Robert observing a rocket launch site. So this is a rocket launch site here, out in the open field. In 1958, the United States started a space program. The next year, NASA opened a new space flight center in Maryland. It was named after Robert. It was called the Goddard Space Flight Center. Robert's ideas helped people build powerful rockets. These rockets flew astronauts into space. In 1969, they flew men to the moon. Today, people call Robert H. Goddard the father of rocket science. It's a picture of him. Okay, and here's, okay, I'll give you a moment to think about what this thing is. It has all the years listed here, all the years mentioned, with all the important things that happened during those years. Oh, and I forgot to point out, this year is also mentioned here, and it is accompanied with some important information that happened during this year. What was that important thing? Well, it says in 1958, the United States started a space program, so which was NASA. Oh. Okay. And here's, if you've taken some time to think about what this thing is, it's a timeline, okay? It goes in the order of what happened. Well, it depends on the way you look at it, but here's what happened. Here's what happened first with Robert H. Goddard. So in 1882, Robert H. Goddard was born. 1899, Robert dreams of building machines that can fly into space. 1907, Robert sets off his first rocket. 1926, Robert tests the first rocket powered by liquid fuel. 1945, Robert becomes ill and dies. 1959, NASA names the Goddard Space Flight Center in Maryland after Robert. 1969, the first men fly to the moon. Okay. Here you see a picture of a rocket launching off into outer space. Thanks to Robert's work, NASA sent rockets into space and to the moon. Alright, and that's the end of your article. Next time we'll be reading Stephanie Quillec's amazing invention. But for now, you've got some activities to do. The first activity is, I think, this one. So, not here. Okay. So on page LC 249 of your language arts activity book, language arts green activity book, literature, LC is for literature and comprehension. You have these empty rectangles in which you'll be placing these. So you'll be cutting out these fact boxes, and then you'll be gluing them. Sorry, okay, it's noisy. You'll be gluing them in the order that they happened onto these rectangles, okay? We'll be placing them here in the order that they happened. So yeah, you'll be cutting these out and pasting them onto here. If you can't find your glue, just, put them in order and then show it to me later on, okay? Alright. So that's your lesson for today. Next time we'll be doing Stephanie Quillec's amazing invention. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.